This is the fourth and final part of the NDE Professional Ethics and Conduct Training. Standard 8, Remunerative Conduct. An educator should maintain integrity with students, colleagues, parents, patrons, or businesses when accepting gifts, gratuities, favors, and additional compensation. Standard 8 discusses the importance of educators handling all school-related business transactions and relationships with integrity. For example, it is unethical to use your position with your district to promote or solicit personal business ventures. Your judgment in business matters should not be impaired by potential personal gain. Districts have internal controls in place to discover financial misconduct among employees. This internal control measure should involve investigating allegations of waste, fraud, financial mismanagement, and employee misconduct. If you are an educator that performs duties related to business and financial matters, you are responsible to ensure the district gets the best quality for the best price without fraud, bribery, favors, and promises of personal gain. 8.1 Ethical Conduct includes but is not limited to the following: ensuring that institutional privileges are not used for personal gain, and ensuring that school policies or procedures are not impacted by gifts or gratuities from any person or organization. Unethical conduct, 8.2, includes but is not limited to the following: soliciting students or parents of students to purchase equipment, supplies, or services from the educator, or to participate in activities that financially benefit the educator unless approved by the local governing body. Tutoring students assigned to the educator for remuneration unless approved by the local school board. The educator shall neither accept nor offer gratuities, gifts, or favors that impair professional judgment or to obtain special advantage. This standard shall not restrict the acceptance of gifts or tokens offered and accepted openly from students, parents, or other persons or organizations in recognition or appreciation of services. Dr. Grant is the district's administrator for online learning and is responsible for selecting a vendor to provide online courses. He has met with several vendors who have made great presentations. 2 representatives from one of the vendors asked to take him out to dinner as an appreciation for him listening to their presentation. While at dinner, the representatives inform him that if he chooses their company, they will send him a personal check of $5,000 to his home address. Dr. Grant accepts this deal and chooses this company as the vendor for the online courses for his district. Dr. Grant's behavior describes which component of Standard 8 unethical conduct. Did he solicit students or parents of students to purchase equipment, supplies, or services from the educator, or to participate in activities that finally benefit him, the educator, without approval from the local governing body? Did he tutor students assigned to himself for remuneration or payment without approval from the local school board? Or did he accept gifts, gratuities, or favors that impaired his professional judgment or obtain a special advantage? The correct answer is C. In accepting the personal check, Dr. Grant offered a gift that impaired his professional judgment. Let's move on to Standard 9, Maintenance of Confidentiality. An educator shall comply with state and federal laws and local school board policies relating to confidentiality of student and personnel records, standardized test material, and other information covered by confidentiality agreements. Standard 9 discusses the need for educators to maintain with the highest degree of confidentiality since they handle sensitive and private student and adult information on a daily basis. The ethical principle of confidentiality is at the core of all professional educators. However, the protection of confidentiality is not an absolute guarantee, since exceptions are mandated both in ethical codes and in law. Standard 9 discusses the different circumstances in which educators are allowed to share information and what information should remain confidential at all times. Educators must work together to ensure confidentiality and proper sharing of information. This involves ensuring oneself practices confidentiality of sensitive information and holding others accountable. Developing a shared understanding and working knowledge of one another's ethical, legal, and professional responsibilities can lead to a collaborative and cohesive working alliance in the safe management of information. Ethical conduct includes but is not limited to the following: keeping in confidence information about students that has been attained in the course of professional service unless disclosure serves a legitimate purpose or is required by law. Maintaining diligently the security of standardized test supplies and resources. (9.2) Unethical conduct includes but is not limited to the following: sharing confidential information concerning student academic and disciplinary records, health and medical information, family status, income, and assessment or testing results unless disclosure is required or permitted by law. Violating confidentiality agreements related to standardized testing, including copying or teaching identified test items, publishing or distributing test items or answers, discussing test items, and violating local school board or state directions for the use of tests. And finally, violating other confidentiality agreements required by state or local policy. Regarding Standard 9, Mr. Hobbs' 7th grade English scores have been the highest in the district for the last 5 years. He works with the State Department to write MAAP test items. The principal discovered that Mr. Hobbs copied the state test items and shares them with his students. Mr. Hobbs' behavior describes which component of Standard 9 unethical conduct? A. Sharing confidential information concerning student academic and disciplinary records, health and medical information, family status, income, and assessment or testing results. Violating confidentiality agreements related to state testing, including copying or teaching identified test items, publishing or distributing test items or answers, discussing test items, and violating local school board or state directions for the use of tests. Or C. Violating other confidentiality agreements required by state or local policy. The correct answer is B. By sharing the items with his students, he's violated the maintenance of confidentiality standard. The final standard is Standard 10, breach of contract or abandonment of employment. An educator should fulfill all the terms and obligations detailed in the contract with the local school board or educational agency for the duration of the contract. Standard 10 discusses the educator's responsibility of fulfilling contractual obligations. As an educator, you are required to fulfill all job duties and responsibilities as detailed in your contract. As a teacher, this includes proper instruction of content, timely grading and assessment of student progress, properly supervising students and managing the classroom, and ensuring the safety and welfare of students. Also, you must fulfill the entire duration of your contract. For instance, if your last day of service for the year is May 28th, then you must work until that day. If you resign before this time without being released, your district may pursue a suspension of your educator license for 1 year due to breach of contract and abandonment of employment. This applies to superintendent, principals, and any licensed employee. Unethical conduct includes, but is not limited to the following: abandoning the contract for professional services without prior release from the contract by the school board, or refusing to perform services required by the contract. In each situation, match the action of the educator with the Standard 10 unethical behavior. Number 1. Mr. Burton signed his contract agreeing to return to McDonald Middle School. Over the summer, he lands a 1-year internship at a local chemical company. He decides to take the internship at the company and not return to McDonald Middle School as a teacher. Which of these two unethical behaviors has he engaged in? Has he abandoned his contract without prior release, or is he refusing to perform services required by the contract? The correct answer is A. He has abandoned the contract for professional services without prior release by the school board. Let's take a look at number 2. Mrs. Milton teaches 5th grade math and science at Butler Elementary School. Several parents have complained to the principal that Mrs. Milton doesn't grade student work or post grades online as other teachers. The students say they do not receive any instruction all day. She assigns a couple of workbook pages each day. Once students complete the work, they are allowed to talk to their friends as long as they don't get too loud. Mrs. Milton spends most of the day on the computer or talking on her cell phone during class time and sometimes leaves the students unattended. Which of these unethical behaviors has Mrs. Milton engaged in? The correct answer is B. She is refusing to perform services required by her contract. Thank you for listening to the Mississippi Ethics Code of Conduct training. For questions and inquiries related to this training, contact the Office of Teaching and Leading. To report an education misconduct case, contact the Office of Educator Misconduct at this phone number. Now you should think about each standard and how you might address these ethical issues in your work. Go to Canvas and complete the MDE Ethics quiz. You must retake the quiz until you attain 80% or higher correct. Remember, you have 3 attempts to meet this criteria.